Welcome back. Tonight's newsmaker wants you to take a good hard look at what you're putting in your mouth, and he wants us all to start thinking about just who is making the food we buy for our families.
The modern supermarket has on average 47,000 products.
The industry doesn't want you to know the truth about what you're eating, because if you knew, you might not want to eat it. We've never had food companies this powerful in our history.
Everything we've done in modern agriculture is to grow it faster, fatter, bigger, cheaper.
If you could grow a chicken in 49 days, why would you want one you got to grow in 3 months?
When you go through the supermarket, there is an illusion of diversity. So much of our industrial food turns out to be rearrangements of corn.
Robert Kenner spent 6 years working on his new documentary, Food Inc., and I started by asking him about some of the shocking information in this movie, like the claim that meat from one hamburger actually comes from hundreds of different cows.
What's happened is that our food has become very industrialized. There are now very few corporations that control this food system, and ultimately we have, I think it's about 13 plants that produce more than 50% of our meat processing plant, and there are thousands of cows that go into the big grinder. So it's a strange system. Even though we've had great scientific advancements, our food has not necessarily gotten safer.
And that's a big focus of the movie, talking about how secretive the food industry is, in your view. A lot of the movie centers around that. Give us a couple more examples of secrets you think everybody needs to know about their food.
Well, I think, one of the big surprises for me was that I went to a hearing on whether we should be labeling cloned meat. And I hadn't even realized there was cloned meat. And the meat representative, their basic response was they thought it would be too confusing to the consumer if we labeled that meat and if we had that information on the package. And that's something that happens time and again, that these corporations, they really will do everything to stop us from having this kind of information, whether it's GMOs, which is genetically modified organisms, or whether it's RBST, which is a growth hormone that goes into our dairy cows. We can go on and on with the list, trans fats, country of origin labeling, that ultimately agribusiness is there. On one hand, they're saying these are things that have improved our food, but yet they're also anxious for us not to see it on the label. And I kind of feel it's not like we're saying what we should be eating in Food Inc., but we are saying that we as Americans should have the right to know what we're eating.
You also say that fruits and vegetables we eat are less nutritional than the same stuff we were eating 50 years ago. I mean, what's different, I guess, about a 2009 tomato?
Well, ultimately, all our food has become industrialized. We figure out how to have it last longer, how to have it look pretty. That tomato, it looks really good, but it doesn't go bad nearly as quickly, and it doesn't have the nutritional value. So this food has been transformed without us really seeing it. Both the tomato's different, the chicken's different, and ultimately we've become different. Where 64% of Americans are either overweight or become obese, and most of those, that 64% has become obese. So we're eating many more calories and getting less nutrition. And the scary part is 1/3 of all Americans are going to be having early onset diabetes if they're born after the year 2000. And this low-cost food, which is low cost, is ultimately going to come to us at a very high cost because of these invisible things that we're not seeing when you go to the checkout line.
Well, let me challenge you on a couple of points. For one, you mentioned that low cost, and there's an argument to be made that you do sort of make that we should all be eating organic foods, produces, milk, meats, everything. And they are far more expensive than the non-organic food. I mean, that's a lot of money for a lot of people.
It is. We spend less of our paycheck on the food we're eating today than at any time in history, and that's great. But we're also spending way more on health care, and I think there's a direct correlation. One of the problems is we're subsidizing corn and soy, and it's going into 90% of the items in the supermarket. And these things are really helping to make us obese and helping to sort of make us sick. So I think, hopefully we could start to subsidize foods that make make us healthier, or at least create an even playing field. That would really, I think, improve the situation. In our film, we show a family that's a lower income family that is eating a lot of this processed and fast food because it's much less expensive, and they gravitate towards that because it's, you know, that's what they can afford. But unfortunately, that same family is spending $500 for medicine every month due to diabetes, and it looks like a young daughter is now going to get diabetes, so it could go up to $1,000. So they're saving on the food, but they're now paying for it with health care costs.
All right, Robert Kenner with us tonight. The movie is called Food Inc. Appreciate your time, Robert.
Thanks so much, Camel.